welcome back to my channel. My name is Joanna Ruminska and I'm a fashion and portrait photographer. In today's video I'll be sharing with you some tips that I wish I knew when I started my photography. As you can see, today we have a different background compared to the last videos. So at the moment I'm at the stage where I'm trying to figure out where I would prefer to shoot. So at the moment it's kind of all over the place, but hopefully at some point I will stick with one location and that will be my permanent background. But anyway, that's not important. Let's start with the tips that I have for you guys. So I have prepared 10 different tips that I wish I knew when I was starting photography. And number one tip is learn the manual mode. And this is so important because basically that's what helps you control the exposure of the picture. And I wish I knew this before when I was starting photography, because when I started I didn't know manual mode for about a year. Depending what you're trying to achieve, this is so important to know. So you need to know ISO, shutter speed and the aperture. So if you would like me to make a video on this, I don't mind. Let me know down below in the comments and I can make a video about this, but I don't really want to go into more details because this will take forever and I have another 9 tips to give you before I can finish this video. So tip number 2, take pictures in RAW. But what is RAW? RAW is basically a file format. So it captures all the image data recorded by your sensor. It doesn't compress this information, therefore allows the picture to be in a higher quality. And if there is any issue with the image, you can still correct it afterwards. Whereas in JPEG you wouldn't be able to do that because all the data has been already compressed together. So if you open the JPEG picture in Photoshop, you won't be able to change the exposure setting, for example, or the shadow or the highlight. Whereas with RAW picture, if your picture is underexposed or overexposed or basically the sky is blown out, you can still play in Photoshop and try and change that. That's why I suggest you guys to start taking pictures in RAW. Just a side note, RAW files are quite big. They are very big actually. So you need to have a lot of space on your computer, and I would suggest you to get a bigger SD card because they do tend to take so much space of your card and your space on the computer. So yeah. Tip number 3, have a backup battery. This is quite important because let me tell you my experience. I went to a photo shoot and I forgot to check my batteries the day before. So when I'm on a photo shoot, I pick up my camera, I turn it on, and all I see is 1 bar. So yeah, I got stressed out, but I knew that I have a spare battery in my bag. But remember, I forgot to check batteries the night before, so I wasn't even sure if that battery was charged. But thankfully it was, so I was okay because that 1 bar didn't last. I think it lasted me about half an hour, so otherwise I would have been... Tip number 4, have a backup card. I hope this doesn't happen to you guys, and knock on the wood, it never happened to me before. Knock on the wood, I hope it doesn't happen to me. But I keep about 3 cards in my bag and I have 2 slots for card in my camera. It's always best to keep a backup card because one day you might go to a shoot and suddenly your card says card error. So yeah, always keep a spare card in your bag. Tip number 5, back up your pictures. So I just mentioned to have a backup battery and backup SD card, but also remember guys to back up your pictures because your computer might stop working at some point too and then you will lose all the pictures. This happened to me before actually, where I only stored my images on my computer and one day my computer just wouldn't turn on and basically the pictures were lost. So always have a backup of your pictures somewhere. So what I would recommend is to get external hard drives. I have an external hard drive. I think I have about 5 or 6 of them, and I try to keep 2 copies of the folders with pictures. So when I do photo shoots, I always keep them in a folder called whichever year. So for example, photo shoots 2020, and then in that folder I have all the photo shoots that I've taken in that year. And I try to keep 1 copy on the computer, 1 copy on an external drive, and another copy on another external drive. This is not that reliable as well. This can break too, so it's always best to keep it on 2 separate ones just to be safe. And trust me, it's better to be safe than sorry. Tip number 6, pay attention to the light. When you're a beginner, it is best to avoid direct sunlight, which happens between 12 to 3 p.m. When you're a beginner, you might not know this, but from 12 to 3 o'clock, the sun is at its highest point, which means that the direct sunlight will cause the pictures to be overexposed. So it's best to avoid shooting at those times unless there is no sunlight. It's a moody day, which really usually happens in the UK. When we get sun, it's like a miracle in this country, so you know. But if you're only available to shoot at these times of the day, maybe just find a place where there is a lot of shadow. So maybe like a bushy park or a forest, you know, where there's always trees covering the sun. I would not advise you to go out and shoot in the middle of the street where there is no shadows at all and the sun is so bright that, yeah, most of your pictures will be overexposed. The best times to shoot are golden hour, so when there is a sunrise or sunset, then you can achieve really amazing pictures. But that's basically during the spring and summer. That doesn't happen in London though, because we always have a moody weather, depressing weather. Yeah, very depressing weather. Number 7, practice a lot. If you're just a beginner, go out and shoot. You don't have to wait for models. If you don't have any friends to practice on, or you don't have animals at home, go out, take pictures of insects, take pictures of trees, take pictures of landscape, play with basically the light. So like my previous tip was pay attention to the light. Go out on different times of the day and see which light you prefer to work with. So I don't know, let's say one day you're gonna go and shoot in the morning, the next day you're gonna go and shoot in the afternoon, and the third day you're gonna go and shoot at night time or evening time, and then you can take all these pictures together and compare, and you can see how different times of the day really reflect on the pictures. But like I said, practice a lot, because practice will make you better. It won't make you bad, it won't make you worse, it will only make you better. So you have to practice a lot. Tip number 8, do not compare yourself to others. That is so important, because if you start comparing yourself to others, it will only bring you down. It won't help you in any other way. It will just bring you down and you will start giving up on yourself. Eventually you will give up photography, because it will just destroy you. And I used to do that. I used to compare myself to others. I used to be jealous that, you know, others people's work was better than mine. But why was I comparing myself to others when I only started taking pictures? It was stupid, because obviously I learned at my own speed, someone else learned at their own speed, and obviously that person who was taking better pictures, they already had more experience than I did. So you can't compare yourself to others. Just take things slow, like let things happen. You know, if you just let things happen by itself, it will happen. You just need to practice and care about yourself, no one else. So stop comparing yourself to anyone else. Tip number 9, pay attention to the detail. For example, when you go out shooting with a model, just pay attention if they have a hairband on their wrist, or if their hair is okay, if the hair is off their face. Any like small details that it will take you time to edit out in Photoshop. Like, try to minimize your work. I don't like going back home and then getting rid of the hairband, because why should I spend extra 10 minutes on editing a picture if I can just ask the model to take it off, and then that basically saves me 10 minutes per picture. And if I'm editing 10 pictures, you do the maths. And finally, tip number 10. And tip number 10, is lenses. This is maybe not a tip, but I want you guys to sit down and think about what type of photography you want to start shooting. I know that in few of my previous videos I talked about a 50mm 1.8 lens, which is a great lens for portrait photography, but if you're thinking about starting a micro photography, you're gonna have to start looking into micro lenses. So I just wanted you guys to think about what type of photography you want to start shooting, because each type of photography will require a different lens. So these are my 10 tips that I wish I knew when I was starting my photography. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you have any suggestions for the next video or any questions, you can leave them down below in the comment section. And yes, I will see you in the next video.